Hi and welcome back. So today we will start generating our components that as we discussed earlier, and um, in those slides earlier we will try to create some example files for that components. So for starters, um, in Angular components are not manually created, but there's always going to be a command for the for Angular that will generate a component. So the command is just like ng knew earlier, it's always going to start with ng. Then afterwards, g component. This is read as ng generate component. It's like that. But for the shortcut, it's ng, g, then c, then name of the component. So for my name, it's going to be navbar. So then after like inputting the name, you press enter. Then it's gonna automatically generate the navbar component. And as you can see here on the left side of our Visual Studio, there's a navbar folder already. It's exactly the same as this app component, app.component.html, and etc. Wherein it has a CSS file, an HTML file, and a .ts file. If you check here in app_module.ts, you can also see that our generated component is automatically there. And if we delete this navbar component, if we try to delete it, it's gonna prompt us some error after deleting it. So this means that the Angular system can find the navbar component generated. So what we will do if you experience this, or if we encounter this, we just need to remove this, and we remove the import here, and then we press save, then the error is gone. Then if you decided to create a new component again, you can generate again a new component. There you go. And then afterwards, after generating a component, as you can see, as a default, the generated navbar has this name, navbar_works. And if we run the server, ng-serve, just wait for a bit. And if we run the server and we follow this link, it's still gonna redirect us to our default page, wherein what we expect is that we should see this navbar works in this page, yet here in our app component.html, it's the default file for Angular. What we will do is we will remove all of this data here in the app component.html, and we save it, and it's going to be blank. Then there's a syntax that we will use for showing this navbar component.html. So what we will do is we will put app dash the name of your component. So the name of my component is navbar. Then it's gonna fill up automatically, and if we save it, it will show here. It will show in our server that the navbar works as follows here in the navbar.component.html. So I highly suggest that if you're working on your HTML page, you open your web browser so that you can see how it looks and how it will change. And after that, let's say we change it to a uppercase format. Now navbar works. Then if we save it, it's gonna update in real time. So it's highly suggested to do that because it's much easier and less complicated to do. Now I will give you an example how the .css is automatically connected with the .html file. Just like I said last time in our discussion in the overview, HTML and .css are always connected here in Angular as a default. So you don't need to worry about putting some links so that it will be linked and connected to your HTML file. It's much easier here in Angular. And as for example, div class top nav, then press enter, then we put some anchor tag, class is equals to active, then we'll link it as a default, hashtag home, then we close it, then its name should be home, and then we copy it because I will still need 3 more, then let's change it to, we remove the classes for the remaining 3, then we change this to news, contact, and about. Then we use this name, we just follow it, contact, news, and about. Then we save it, it's gonna show here. Yet it doesn't look good because the CSS style is still not there. So what we will do is we remember this class so that we can link it in the CSS. Then afterwards, what we do is here in CSS, inside our CSS, we just use the class just like we usually do in doing HTML and CSS files. We change the background color into gray. Then we save it so that we can see it. It changed. It magically changed. Then we add more overflow, hidden. You can't see the changes there because it's a default kind of thing. And then we just do the top nav anchor tag. We will change the anchor tag float left so that it's gonna be properly aligned. We save it, color, the color change, text align center, padding 14 pixel by 16 pixels. Then now it's looking good. Right now the web page is looking good. So far so good. And we keep on adding some CSS on it. Okay, then we add one more to change the color of the links of the hover, background color, hashtag BDD, and color into black. And to add color to the active current link, what we do is a.active, then background color 04AA6D, and then color white. Now our nav bar looks good. As we can see here, our nav bar looks good, but it still lacks some functionalities. But we won't tackle it here. As long as we know the basic concept here in the Angular, it's all good. So as you can see, what happens here is that in our HTML file, the CSS file is automatically shown in here. And then it's automatically connected in our HTML, wherein some other files you need to put in the basic HTML and CSS creation. We still need to link the style sheets, etc. But here, we just have to connect these two or generate a component, and the CSS file and the HTML file is automatically connected. But the thing about it, this CSS file is only for local access. So it can only access this navbar.component.html. It won't affect this app component.html, because if you remove this, it's not going to show up anymore. But if you put it back, it's going to show up again. Yet the purpose of the app.component.html is just, this is where we will put everything, all of our components that we want to show. Like we can put some app.model -model and etc. later if we can do that, if we create the model component already. Yet for now, let's just stick to the nav bar for the basic concepts. Also, here in style.css, you can add like a global style sheets here. As you can see, let's say we remove all the CSS and then we put it here in the styles.css. As you can see, the navbar.component.css is now blank, yet is still showing the same output as earlier. But the thing about this, the problem in using styles.css, it's gonna affect everything, every component that you have, and it's not ideal to do that because the classes here in the HTML files might be the same in some other components, and it's gonna conflict, and maybe it will result into something not what you are expecting. So in style.css, we remove all of this, and then we put it back to the navbar component.html .css.